Hello and welcome back to the Ground Up Advanced Flight Tutorials. Thank you very much for joining me in this video, and today we're going to be continuing on from what we learned in the last video. So in the last video we were taking a look at approach lighting and runway lighting and taxiway lighting in the United Kingdom. Now today we're going to be taking that one step further, and we're going to be looking at the differences that you would find in the United States. So we had a look at the Civil Aviation Authority, that's the CAA, and now we're going to be having a look at the Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA. So we're going to be having a look at what is different. Now, if you haven't watched the last video, don't worry, because I am just going to go over everything all over again. So you find us at JFK. You can see we're at JFK in the state of New York. There's New York City, that's where, or Manhattan, and we're going to go over all the bits all over again that that I covered in the last one in a format that is suitable for FAA regulations. So for the next, I'd say, half an hour or so, we're going to be going over this. So make sure you sit down, get comfortable, and get ready to learn something about airport lighting. Okay, so we're going to start here on ground level. As you can see now, because of the explanations I gave in the last video, I am going to try and explain this the exact same way, but I might skip a few things out that maybe after watching that video back I deemed to be unnecessary for flight simulation. But let's start anyway. You see these blue lights here? We're going to start with these blue lights. They're elevated off the taxiway. You can see they're actually on these little sticks. They actually looks quite nice. Make sure an aircraft doesn't hit them, because obviously that will knock them over. That damages the light, probably will damage the aircraft as well, particularly if an aircraft decides to make a very sharp turn and really shouldn't be and runs over them. Might actually damage the wheel. These lights indicate or denote the edge of a taxiway. Now they are visible no matter what angle you're looking at them, so you will notice that some of these lights are only visible from certain angles, but looking at these lights, you can see all around the airport, you can see these blue lights everywhere. So you can see the blue lights all over, denoting all the edges of the taxiway. It's very easy to see, very, very clear for not only aircraft, but also air traffic controllers. So where's the control tower for this? There's the control tower. So from the control tower, if you're looking at this, in fact, let's pop over to the control tower as fast as we can. This is probably a faster way. There you go. You can see each set of these blue lights. So they denote a taxiway. Like I said, how far are we from the control tower? There it is. Come on, anytime now. We'll get there eventually. I have to figure out how to speed the movement up in X-Plane. That control tower actually looks functional. That's crazy. But anyway, let's assume we are in the control tower and you're having a look just outside from the control tower. There. So you can see that a number of lights are not visible that we may have seen at ground level, but the blue lights for the taxiways are all clearly visible, as are those guard lights. And I'll explain the guard lights in a moment, so you can see why those need to be visible at all times. So that's one set of lighting already done. Let's go down to this taxiway right here, where you can see that the edge of the taxiway lights are not there because this isn't a primary taxiway, or this is more like an apron actually. What we have is these green lights. We have these green lights all the way along, and as you can see, they follow along the taxiway right on that center line. So if you follow the center line, you can see that they are all the way. And that's basically what those denote. Those denote the center line of the taxiway when it's difficult to see the taxiway at night. They will only be at a certain angle though. I think 15 degrees is your angle. So you can see that when we look around, some of these lights are not visible to us, and the higher up we go, you'll see that only ones within our angle are going to be visible to us. So that is that. Very, very simple, very easy to understand. Let's ignore the emergency lights that are going on there. I'm not sure what's going on. Moving on from there, let's have a look at anything else that we need to cover on the taxiway. Yep, we've got guard lights. Let's take a look at these guard lights. And with it comes something else as well, which you may just notice right here. Now you'll notice here that we've got something that's changed. We've got this lighting system where it's gone from green. All these lights were green on the center line. We've got a different set. We've got a different setup here. We've got a center line with these dashed markings all the way, but we've also got alternating yellow and green. So in an alternate fashion, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green. What does that mean? And then we've got this bar across here with these lights flashing. Those are the guard lights. And this is an approach to a guard. So what this is saying is that you are approaching or have entered an ILS critical zone. So if you have a look at this, if you haven't seen my series, the ground up advanced flight tutorials previously, then you need to go back and check lesson number 2 if you do not understand what these markings are all around. Watch lesson 2, then come back to this, because lesson 2 will explain everything that is on visual markings on an airport, on the runway, on the taxiway, and so on and so forth. So that will explain all of that to you. Then you'll be able to come back to this and make more sense of what's going on. So here we've got a holding point, as you can see, and we are entering a restricted area on ILS critical zone. Now, if we go, I'm just trying to find a better example of this. Does this runway have it? No, these ones all go green afterwards. They all go green. I was looking for a runway. In the United Kingdom, this would all be green and yellow. So on CAA regulations, everything within an ILS critical area, all of this would be green and yellow. It would not just be green, and only on the edges, on the approach, would it be green and yellow. So that would denote an ILS critical zone in the United Kingdom. In the United States, it seems to be that it will be up to an ILS critical zone, as you can see, and then from there it will go and return back to green. So that's what those guard lights mean. That's the edge of a holding point. So that would be a holding point mostly for entering a specific area, and then those yellow and green lights indicate that you're entering an ILS critical zone. And that is everything to have a look at on the taxiway. Let's now move on to which runway should we use? Let's see. I'm trying to pick a good runway for us. I think this runway across here might be good. So we're going to have a look at the runway markings now. Runway markings are different from airport to airport, predominantly from runway to runway in an airport, because each runway may have a different style of approach, may have a different set of markings, may have a different, for example, this one's got an emergency area, a blast pad. This one's got a displaced threshold, then it's got a hold for a taxiway, then it's got the threshold, then it's got the runway. And you can see how long that displaced threshold is, which is why I'm going to start with this one, and then I'm going to probably show you another runway too whilst I'm at it. I do apologise for the slow movement. If anybody knows how to make the movement in X-Plane on the camera faster, I would really appreciate it. Didn't mean to bring up the map. Okay, so here we go. This is a marking for a runway. This is a runway. It doesn't have any approach markers. It's just a standard runway marking setup. No approach lights. We're just going to have a look at the runway as a whole. So moving forward slightly. Let's see what we see. We've got these red lights here. we've got the blast pad, which isn't marked at all on this particular runway. We have these red lights right here. As you can see, right there, fairly high intensity. That marks the edge of a runway. That's not the edge of the landing area. That's not the edge of a displaced threshold necessarily. That is the end of a runway. So obviously we've got this blast zone here, which is not supposed to be used at all except in absolute emergencies. But this is the end of the runway, showing that there is a section of runway before the landing area, and we'll show you the runway threshold. So this is a section of runway before the threshold. Now on the opposite side it will still be red. That's why I say it just means the end of a runway. Four lights, all red means end of a runway. That will then be denoted also further by red lights all the way along the side of the runway. So that's denoting, that there is denoting a displaced threshold. So you can see that displaced threshold, and on the ground, on the center line, all those lights will be red. So that is denoting a certain part of the runway. This is all in all, this is denoting the displaced threshold of a runway for pilots coming into land. So they look at that and go, right, there is a runway there. In absolute emergencies, I should be able to bring my aircraft down there, but it is a displaced threshold. I should not be looking at bringing my aircraft down. Moving forward past this, we'll ignore these taxiway lights lining up onto the runway, as you can see, and we'll ignore the guard lights for the crossing of the two runways. We're going to go right up forward to the threshold itself. Right, so here we've got 4 lights on that side, 4 lights on that side, coloured in green. That denotes the threshold of a runway, and you can see the threshold right there. We've got that displaced threshold, and there is the actual threshold. There are the lights indicating the threshold begins. So after that, we have the touchdown zone, which you can see, and of course the rest of the landing area of the runway. Now, once the threshold has been reached, you will see these lights every 200 feet down the runway. So you can have a look at these lights. It's every 100 or 200 feet down the runway. They are white. So for now, they are white. That means that you're on a usable section of runway and you've got plenty of runway to go. As we start traveling down the runway, these are known as runway edge marking lights. This is known as the runway center line. So we've got the center line lights right here, which are also white. So you can see the white centerline markings. And as we travel down the runway, I'm actually going to move my microphone a slight amount. There we go. As we travel all the way down the runway, you can see all the taxiway markings coming on and off. You can see the taxiway edge lights all along. But really, we want to focus on this runway all the way through. Now you're going to notice, going all the way down the runway, these lights remain white all the way except towards the end. Look at the end of the runway. You will notice that these lights have gone from white, as you can see. I'm just looking for it, ensuring that it does come up. Here we go. The center line is the first one to look at. The center line is our first marking. These lights turn from white to an alternating pattern between red and white. So red and white would be 3,000 feet to the end of the runway. So that's a 3,000 feet warning until the end of the runway. That's your first indication you're reaching the end of the runway. If it's foggy, you'll need to know this. Those lights indicate 3,000 feet to go. Moving forward, when you reach the 2,000 feet mark, and if we take a good look at these lights, there you go. These lights will change from white to yellow. So now if we move forward, you can see there with the number 2, yellow lights are indicating 2,000 feet to go before the end of the runway. Now if you were to continue further along for another 1,000 feet, you will see at the 1,000 foot mark, so about 300 meters to go before the end of the runway, these lights will change from white and red to completely red. And that means you're down to the last 1,000 feet of runway, and then at the end you've got the lights marking, high intensity lights marking the end of the runway right there. And then if you turn around, you're going to see that it is exactly like what we saw in the opposite direction. There you have it. Exactly the same. Like so. So you can see the red lights, then you're going to have the white lights all the way along, then you're going to end up having the lights go orange or go yellow. So you'll have the red, white, orange lights on the side, and then red lights at the end. I'm also just taking a look at these lights that are down here. These are, oh right, okay, these are not lights that we need to look at. Okay, there we have it. That is one runway down. Now we're going to have a look at a different runway. Is there a runway I can get to that's probably closer? Let's see. Nope, we're going to have to go this way. That's the runway I want to show you. You can see the lights flashing there. You can see that runway and that runway. Those are the runways that I'm going to show you. Eventually when we get there. Alright, so hopefully by now you're starting to get an understanding of what a runway setup is and a taxiway setup in the United States. Slightly different, like I said, from the United Kingdom, especially with the guard lighting and the ILS critical area lighting. So that's slightly different. And now we are going to see that on the runway, whilst the lights are the same, the lighting system is different on the approach. These lights here, these flashing lights here, are runway edge, runway identifier lights. So I suppose they're runway edge identifier lights. They are active and they flash, indicating the start of a usable runway 2. And as you can see, that has 3 lights on a threshold, and it has the exact same lighting setup. So you can see the white lights all the way down, the 3 green lights on either side. The other one had 4, which were off the side. This one is actually on. We had 3. We have the runway marking all the way down, and as you go further down the runway, you will see that those will change from white on the center line to red and white, and then the runway edge lights will change from white to yellow, and then finally the runway centerline lights will change completely to red, indicating 1,000 feet to go. Now let's have a look at this runway, and this is where things are different in the United States and the United Kingdom. Definite differences here on the approach. You can actually see another approach over there, which we might have a look at. So if we go closer, you can see here we've got a very different style of runway. Now this is an approach lighting sequence. These are obviously called approach lighting system, sorry. So this is an approach lighting system, but also this is with sequence flashing lights. So this is known as ALSF, and you can have ALSF1 and ALSF2. Now this here is ALSF2. The reason I know this is ALSF2 is because it's got the red lighting there. So I'm going to show you what an ALSF2 lighting system looks like. This is used for Category 2 and Category 3 landings, so auto land systems. And you will see that there will be a 5 sequence setup. So lights in setups of 5 all the way down. And they begin, how far do they begin? That's a good question. I think they will begin 3,000 feet from the runway. Yep, that's right. 3,000 feet from the runway. So each one of these will be 100 feet, I believe. So you'll go 3000, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 2. That's not right. That's not right. It's not 2,000 feet. It's not 100 feet per one. It may be 200 feet per one. 200 feet, yep. So 3,000, 28, 26, 24, 22, 2,000, 18, 16, 14, 12, 1,000? I'm not even... How am I getting this wrong? Unless this is starting further out. Unless this is starting further out than I think. Or closer than I think. But anyway, okay, moving on from that. These sequences, these are known as... They're often known as the rabbit lights. So these are rabbit lights because it's like following... I think, is it greyhound racing? Greyhound racing, where they follow that rabbit and they're just... chasing after this rabbit. So it's the exact same sort of system. I think this one actually, looking at this, I may have... No, this is definitely 3,000 feet. Definitely 3,000 feet. Anyway, moving forward, I suppose it doesn't really matter how far away they are for now. But anyway, we're moving forward from that. So we have a system of 5 with this center flashing light that flashes in a sequence right the way up. As you can see, it's got the sequence in the middle going right the way up. If we move forward all the way, come on, these markings are at... Aha, that's better. Now I can read this. This marking is 1,000 feet before the runway. This marking is 500 feet before the runway. It is 100 feet intervals. 1,000 feet before the runway, 500 feet before the runway. After that, you will end up with these extra red lights. So you've got the Als F2. So this is the high intensity approach light system with sequence lights configuration 2, which has red side row lights like so for the last 1,000 feet. It's a 2,400 foot approach system. That's why I got the counting wrong. In this case, it can be up to 3,000 feet. So this is 1,000 feet, 900, 800, 700, 600, 500 feet has another row with these lights going on. And you can see here, they're also, after 500 feet, because we have tarmac, so you can see there's a 500 foot mark, there's the localizer. They then go onto the ground, or because we've actually got usable ground, they will then go into the ground. They will not be elevated like this, but it will be the same system. So you got the 3 red lights continuing, the 5 red lights right the way up to a fully lit threshold. You'll have a green light all the way across. So green lights all the way across is a fully lit threshold. It means the same thing. It means the exact same thing. You've got the approach into an airport. So that is the approach lighting system sequence with sequence flashing lights configuration 2. So like I said, in this case, if we count this again, we know that this is 500 feet. And this one here we know is 1,000 feet. So if we were to count back from that, we should get somewhere between 2,400 and 3,000 feet. Yeah, we should get somewhere between 2,400 and 3,000 feet. So let's go 1,000, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2,400 foot. That's a 2,400 foot approach up to the airport threshold. So that is what that means. This is again indicating category 2 and category 3 landings typically for this. Threshold goes all the way across, and you'll notice that they have the 4 lights out of the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you've got the lights going all the way across the threshold, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 once again. And then we have these lights along this area. These are touchdown zone lights. So these lights will extend 3,000 foot down the runway or halfway down the length of the runway, whichever one is shorter. They are spaced out in 100 foot increments, so you'll see 30 of them along this runway, as this runway is longer than 6,000 feet. You will see 30 of these along the runway, and they indicate to a pilot the touchdown zone of of an aircraft, so of a runway, sorry. So you've got the touchdown zone of the runway, which, as you can see, after the threshold, and you can actually see the touchdown zone markers all the way down. And where the touchdown zone markers end, that is where the system ends. Or halfway down the runway, depending on which one is shorter. So you can see there's the end of the touchdown system right there, and that is where the lighting also comes to an end. Now if we turn around the other way, you'll see these lights on the other side. Now if we go backwards this way, again you can see those red and white markings and then red. And also, actually good idea to note that, with the threshold, because these lights go two ways, the threshold is green, and then to mark the end of the runway is a solid red band all the way across. I keep opening that map so you can see that. So that's another thing to note. Now coming back along here, you'll notice that we'll have touchdown zone lights starting on this side in a moment. Anytime now, there they are. There's the touchdown zone lights for this way. So you've got the exact same thing. And as you can see, it only goes 3,000 feet down the runway. One other thing I forgot to tell you guys is that the red and white markers that go for the last 3,000 feet of the runway also will be halfway down the runway if the runway is shorter than 6,000 feet. So basically it's whichever one is shorter. Now, having a look at this approach system, this is very different. As you can see, it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't extend very far, and it only has the rabbit lights. It doesn't have anything else. So this is another different type of system. This is actually, I believe this one is not even, I think this is for category 1 operations. So it's just marking, it's just helping you mark the center line of the runway, as you can see. So there's the localizer. We've got single lights, as you can see, all the way down. Goes across the runway. And then right at the end, right here, which is, that's 500, 600, 700 feet before the runway. So that's 700 feet before the runway, you will see these lights come back up. So you've got the 5 lights across. Technically, I do feel like these lights should be in the ground. And then you've got the end of the runway markings once again. And then you've got that marking 500 foot before the threshold. So we've already had a look at this. Then 4, 3, 2, 1, threshold. So that is another approach system. I think that one is, I think that one's called Simplified Short Approach Lighting System with Flashing Lights. But I don't see that as long as it is, because it only looks like it's 1,000. Is it 1,000 feet? Hold on. We've got this at 500, 600, 700, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1,200 feet. So that is only for 1,200 feet, and the lights are only shown there. Now this is, like I said, it's a simplified one. I think this may be, you may be able to call this a short approach lighting system. I don't even think that one counts. I do think that this is just a simplified short approach lighting system, but it's not a full length lighting system, as you can see. So you will find that in America too. You'll find some of those that look like that. Again, nothing to be worried about, apart from the fact that I do not believe that these ones will be available to use for Cat 2 and Cat 3 operations. I believe this is Cat 1. Again, you've got the touchdown zone lighting, so you can see those lights there. You don't have the runway end identifier lights, so those were those flashing lights that I showed you on those runways. In fact, you can just see it there. Those 2 flashing lights there. They don't show on, we don't have them on this runway. So they don't have those, but they do have the other systems. So they've got the threshold, they've got the displaced threshold lights, they've got the rabbit, they've got the 500-foot marker, you've got the approach system there, you've got the touchdown system lights, you've got the runway edge lighting, and you've got the runway center lighting. So they've got all of that. I'm just trying to work out what this is. If this is 1200 feet, I do wonder whether this could be counted as an omnidirectional approach lighting system with sequence lights. That might be this. That might be this one. But I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure because, like I said, one, I'm not from America, and I don't know all of the lighting systems perfectly in according to the FAA regulations. And two, this is slightly different and it is explained, so there will be a few things that aren't quite so right. But I think that should give you a good explanation of the runway lighting systems, the taxiway lighting systems, and the approach lighting systems according to FAA regulations. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more videos on the ground up advanced flight tutorials. Leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know what you think. Don't forget to support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadget. Your support would be massively appreciated. It would help me out a huge amount. Also, if you support me on Patreon with the $5 or more reward, you will get access to the Patreon exclusive channel on Discord, and also the Flight Sim Tutorials channel on Discord, where you can talk and ask me about anything, and I'll be happy to go into a lot of depth in engineering terms, in pilot terms, whatever way you want me to go into depth on that. So make sure you do consider that, and also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ecgadget. That is all from me, and I'll see you guys next time in the ground up advanced flight tutorials.